presentations, essays and deadlines in for the next few days. But thank you all. This was organised in about 2 or 3 weeks, so it's been a bit of a rush. But thank you, and I hope you all enjoy it.
Okay, thank you everyone for turning up today. I'd like to remind you all, if you could please switch off your mobile phones, because they go off, they make noise and they interfere with the microphones. I'm Guy, I'm the President-elect of the Debating Society, and I'm going to be chairing today's discussion. I would like to first of all make clear that the role of the chair is neither to support nor oppose any one side of the debate, rather to maintain order and ensure that all speakers get the opportunity to express themselves properly. I'd also like to make clear that both the speakers and members of the audience will have their opportunity to ask questions and make statements, that if anyone says something that is considered to incite racial hatred, or says anything that is unnecessarily provocative and designed and said with the intention to cause offence and is not related to the debate, I will have to remind you what is and is not appropriate to say within an academic institute, and if need be ask you to leave, but I'm hoping that won't be the case. I'm going to read out the Student Union's policy on the matter. The Union is committed to the elimination of all forms of discrimination and harassment within its organisation, both in relation to its members and guests, and in the provision of its service. The Union will strive to achieve the following: equality of opportunity for all of the terms of its members and guests, and advancement within the SU regardless of race, colour, ethnic origin, nationality, age, sex, sexual orientation, marital status, parental status, mental or physical health, and or ability, or religious and political beliefs and affiliation. Secondly, that individuals are treated in a fair, equitable and consistent manner, and are given the opportunity to fulfil their potential, and that everyone has the opportunity to see properly. So as such, anyone who does cause any disturbances to any of the speakers who are speaking are going to be breaking the Students' Union Constitution, and that's not going on. As such, I'd like to introduce our speakers. We have with us today Douglas Murray, who is author and journalist, who has written for Spectator and the Wall Street Journal. Thank you very much, Douglas Murray. We also have Mr. Sam Westrock, who is the director of the Institute for Middle East Democracy. And on the no panel, we have Mr. Mark MacDonald, who is the Vice Chair of Labour Friends of Palestine and also a human rights barrister. And we also have Mr. Sameh-Habeeb, who is the founder of the Palestine Telegraph newspaper, and who has also worked as a reporter for various Western media outlets in Gaza during the 2009 war. We're going to start with opening speeches, which are going to be made by each speaker. They're going to be between 3 and 5 minutes long. Speakers at 3 minutes are going to hear this, which lets you know you have 2 minutes left. At 5 minutes, you're going to hear this, which tells you that you've run out of time. Afterwards, there are going to be 3 discussion topics, which are going to be led by Monica, who is the former president of the Politics and International Relations Society. After each of the discussion topics, there's going to be an opportunity for you to ask questions that are related to the discussion topic. However, due to time restraints, we can only accept 2 of them. After all 3 of the discussion topics, there are going to be closing speeches of 3 minutes length, at which time at the end you'll hear this. Yeah, just remember, 2 bangs means enough time to stop talking, and then after the final, and then there'll be final questions at the end, where you are invited to ask any questions regarding anything that has been said, or express your own opinion on certain matters. And I'd like to remind the audience what I said, that everything that's applicable to the speakers with regards to what is and isn't allowed to say is also applicable to you, and you're here representing your college. So, without any further ado, I would like to call upon the first speaker for today, which is Sam Westrock, the Director of the Institute for Middle East Democracy. Thank you very much.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for inviting me here today. I'm sure most of you in this room have heard that a suicide bombing in Jerusalem occurred about 3-4 hours ago. The last I saw, there were 50 injured and at least 1 dead. So why we're here tonight, I think is of critical importance, not just so we can understand what's going on over there, but also so we can see a peaceful resolution of the events in the Middle East. There are 2 particular events that pertain to the title of this debate. The motion I'm proposing is, yes, we are too critical of Israel. I'd like to very, very briefly actually sort of slightly change that title, just to annoy the other speakers. I don't think we are too critical of Israel. I'm supporting the debate because it fits my argument. I don't think any criticism of a country is wrong. I think criticism is required of all countries, regardless of their political system. What I see today, when we talk about Israel, when we talk about the conflict in the Middle East, is I see a demonization of Israel. I see a dehumanization of many of the people. And I see a rhetoric that is not conducive to any kind of settlement, both here in the UK with the troubles we have, and and also in the Middle East. Two events over the weekend, I feel, over the last week about corroborate my argument. The first would be the murder of the Fogel family, as the media is so keen to remind us, in a Jewish settlement. A horrible event, with a 3-month-old baby effectively decapitated. Purely monstrous, this, and I was glad to see that the Palestinian Authority quickly condemned the event along with people around the world. What I found so shocking, of course, is while the Palestinian Authority publicly condemned the event, their associated news agency, the Man news agency, quickly put out a statement suggesting that a Thai worker had been responsible for this murder. Now, there are no Thai workers in Itamar. It's entirely built by Jews. Whether you agree with the settlements or not, no Thais around. This lie, and I can see my honourable opposition shaking his head, but this lie has been propagated very effectively. I've spoken with the representative of Judeo-Samaria who has confirmed there are no Thai workers in Itamar. And the quickness, the ease with which this spread, this lie propagated, not just through the blogs and various Palestinian sources online, but also through Western media and through the anti-Israeli sentiments here, was extraordinary. The second event occurred at SOAS on Sunday. It was the Celebrate Palestine Festival. A group of 4 activists running a pro-peace demonstration. One Palestinian Solidarity Campaign activist ran up to one of them and bit a chunk of flesh off his cheek, while another Palestinian Solidarity Campaign activist started making Holocaust taunts. Now, are we too critical of Israel? I think this is something that goes far beyond criticism. This is a dehumanization, it's a delegitimization, it's reached a point of violent attack upon those who would advocate Israel. Not even those who would advocate Israel, but those who would advocate peace. I'm sure as the discussion topics go on, we'll delve into details and work out exactly what's going on. But my point is this, is that criticism implies a rational observation. There is no rationality to a lot of the hatred, the anti-Israeli sentiment that occurs in this country. It is purely emotive. I would suggest that the Israel Apartheid Week, which is happening at the moment, there is no rational start to that. That is an emotive, ridiculous statement designed to create the apartheid they claim is happening. They're trying to separate two sides. They call themselves pro-Palestinian. They're not. I'm pro-Palestinian. I believe in a two-state solution. I believe in self-determination for Palestinian people. The things that are going on at the moment, the Israel Apartheid Week, is anti-Israeli, it's anti-peace. It's not pro-Palestinian, it's not pro-peace. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sam-Habeeb. I'd like to call upon Mr. Mark MacDonald, Vice Chair of Labour, Friends of Palestine, to make a speech. Thank you.
You know, I very rarely, following the guidelines of this debate, ever have a go at or negatively say anything about another speaker. But that was one of the most selective, disingenuous 3 minutes talk I've ever heard. I mean, we talk about the awful situation, and I don't think anyone in their right mind would not condemn the murder of people in settlers, a family of people in settlers. But he forgets the bombing yesterday of a family killing of children playing football by an Israeli Air Force plane. He forgets to mention that. Why? Why doesn't it fit in with his argument? He forgets to mention that 250,000 people in this country marched on consecutive Saturdays against the strike and the murder that was taking place in Operation Cast Lead in Gaza. Why? because it fits in his argument to make Israel a victim. Are we too critical on Israel?
No.
No, we're not. We've got to be far more critical on Israel. We've got to isolate Israel. We've got to let Israel know, through the international community, how wrong they are. They have flouted international laws constantly, year after year, decade after decade. As a country, as a democratically elected country, they have flouted international law. Right. They built settlements on occupied land, contrary to international law. 500,000 Jews live in settlements in Palestinian land in the West Bank, contrary to international law, condemned by the United States, condemned by every European country, but still they continue to build. They bombed, and we all saw it, it wasn't that long ago, Gaza, killing something between 350 and 400 children. Now, some, they may say, were legitimate targets, not the children, the adults. But they killed the children. Why? And yet, when we tried to get on television, when we tried to announce it to the world through the BBC, through appeals, they refused. They refused to allow us. We're going to come on to that topic in a moment. Are we too critical of Israel? No, we're not. We've got to be far more. We've got to let the world know that this country cannot consistently and constantly get away with murder. And I use that word, I'm a barrister, I know what murder means. It's the intentional killing of another human being unlawfully. When somebody is extrajudicially executed by a targeted bomb on a Hamas operative, that's called outside the law. That's called an execution. That's called a murder. When other people around him die, the children of that person, people playing in football fields, that's called murder. We have to be critical of Israel. We've got to be more vocal about our criticism of Israel. We've got to make the world understand that it's wrong. And hopefully one day, Israel will wake up and realise that it is on its own. And hopefully then, they will sit down at a table, stop building the illegal settlements, tear down the illegal wall, and start talking on a proper, mature basis with the Palestinians about having the two-state solution that our colleague wants so much.
Thank you ever so much, Mr. MacDonald. I'd like to call upon Mr. Douglas Murray, author and journalist, to make a speech. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you to Holloway and the Society and Society involved for inviting me to speak. It's a great pleasure to be here and see your beautiful campus. I've got an idea already from the opening applause of what most of you think. But after all, this is at the university, so we're not here to talk about propaganda, but to talk about facts and ideas and history, and I hope we can do so. The motion itself tells you everything you need to know. Are we too critical of Israel? What other country would get this crowd out tonight if we had it in the title? Syrian government, just hours ago, sent its own troops in and massacred people in a mosque in Syrian territory. But would you have a motion here? Well, Holloway got you all out on a pleasant Wednesday evening. Are we too critical of Syria? No. No, I'm fairly sure we wouldn't. Saudi government's just been pimping out its own troops, the government of Bahrain, to gun down the people of Bahrain's streets. Would you come out to discuss, are we too critical of Bahrain? Are we too critical of Saudi? No. because international